Brought to you
on NHRA Today at Work and Play with Kim LaHaie. 1/10 the size, but full-scale excitement. And the Oklahoma stable of some fabled Fords. From the Firestone ET Bracket Championships in Commerce, Georgia, these stories and more on this edition of NHRA Today. They're the unsung heroes who form the foundation upon which the sport of drag racing is built. They're known by many names. The little guys, weekend warriors, hobby racers. They're some of the most spirited competitors in motorsports. They're the bracket racers of the National Hot Rod Association. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of NHRA Today. This is Steve Evans, and we're coming to you from Atlanta Dragway, the site of the Division II 8th Mile Bracket Racing Championships. In the next half hour, we'll show you some of the activity that goes on at these events. And to kick things off, here's Bob Fry with a close-up look at bracket racing.
This isn't your ordinary collection of race cars that you'd expect to see when you come to the drag strip. But then this wasn't an ordinary drag race. As part of NHRA's grassroots bracket racing program, this event brought together top bracket racers from 13 tracks throughout the Southeast. As a bracket race, you get a wide variety of cars, from a 37 Dodge to a Chevy Camaro complete with flames. You get your high-dollar XJS Jaguar, an all-out Super Pro car, and even a radical pickup truck. But then, that's the nature of bracket racing. When it comes to bracket racing, you can race anything with wheels. Well, almost anything.
There's 4 different classes. There's 3 of cars and 1 of motorcycle. The sportsman eliminator, we call them, are like street-driven vehicles. They come in, they can boat their slicks on, they can drive them to the racetracks. And then we move up to the pro eliminator, which is a highly modified type car. They run a smaller motor than like our super pros when we get into real high horsepower cars and big cubic inch motors, and they really motor on down the racetrack.
Division II is unique in that it holds bracket championships for both quarter-mile and 8th-mile competitors.
The division has 22 racetracks in it, and 50% of them are 8th-mile tracks. And for years, the 8th-mile tracks didn't have their own program. And 2 years ago, we elected to split the format, offering a quarter-mile and an 8th-mile. It gives the best of both worlds for everybody.
For some participants, the attraction of bracket racing comes from simply having fun.
We have a good time. We always bring the family, my wife and 2 boys, and we just have a good time.
Others enjoy the thrill of competition and the chance to take on racers from other tracks.
I just enjoy the competition and the sport itself and the thrill of it.
It's more competition to me, because you got to have your car dialed right, and you got to know what you're doing when you get there. Our track's real competitive, and it's always real competitive. Anytime we go out of town, we really do good, you know. We hate to get dogged out, you know, really. That's about what we do.
The competition between the various teams is often as intense in the grandstands as it is on the track, as the Team Spirit Award is highly coveted. I'm here with a few of my close personal friends in Douglas, Georgia. Who's going to win this thing? We'll be back later in the show to see just how well Southern Dragway and the 12 other teams did at the Division II Firestone ET Bracket Championships.
NHRA Today is being brought to you by Firestone, makers of Firehawk Performance tires for the street, the track, and the strip. Tires that meet the test. And by Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown.
Welcome back to NHRA Today. In addition to the divisional championships, Atlanta Dragway was also host to an 8-car shootout event, with this Super Comp dragster built by S&W Race Cars as first prize. Claiming that honor was third-seeded Mark Padgett of Dublin, Georgia.
They took the top 8 drivers at the end of the year and run for this car, and I was just lucky enough to be here at the end to win it. It's like a dream come true.
Another person whose dreams include a Super Comp dragster is Top Fuel crew chief Kim LaHaie. And as Dave McClellan reports, Kim is no stranger to a driving ambition.
Through my childhood years, I was always around and watching my dad. I was hanging out in the garage and watching what he was doing and paying attention, and going to the races, I was paying attention somewhat. And a lot of it did come natural when I finally did get the opportunity to do it.
Though she'd been around racing all her life, Kim didn't join her father's crew until 1982, after an active youth that included basketball, softball, and motorcycle racing.
I've always been a team player and a competitive person. And I guess I came to realization with myself that, okay, I've got everything else out of the way, now I want to go racing.
It didn't take long for Kim to prove her mechanical abilities, being the only female crew chief in the nitro ranks. Together, Kim and Dick LaHaie have captured 15 national titles, the World Championship in 1987, and have consistently finished in the top 10 for the last 7 years. Kim's ability earned her the Crew Chief of the Year award in 1988, and she's been a finalist 3 other times. The success of the LaHaie team is due largely to Dick's skill as a driver and Kim's as talented crew chief. But their bond runs much deeper, whether it's father-daughter or boss-employee. Kim says they are first and foremost friends.
We know each other inside and out, basically. But we could work for an hour in between rounds and we would never have to say a word to each other. We just knew what each other was going to do, and so we had a really good routine. We do get along really well.
We're also very good friends. To have true friends is something that it's very hard to explain, and I think that I can say that about Kim, that she is definitely probably the best friend I have.
With a career that keeps her hopping from Pomona to Pennsylvania, Kim's off time at her home in Lansing, Michigan is well-deserved and well spent.
I do a lot of work around the house, actually, and I enjoy that. Yard work and painting and kind of odds and ends here and there. The main thing that I find relaxation in and enjoyment out of is fishing. If there's a day or a couple of days, I'll go to the lake and go fishing.
While Kim goes to the lake for a little quiet and relaxation, she often finds herself in the company of her 6-year-old niece, Tana.
She's just like mine, I guess, except, you know, that I can send her back home after a few days or whatever. But no, we do spend a lot of time together, and we are real close.
Here you go. I caught something.
You did? Oh, you did. You got you a weed.
You got me a weed. I caught something. You didn't.
With a third-place finish in 1990, Team LaHaie moves into yet another season, but a few changes may be on the horizon. The biggest one would put Kim in the driver's seat.
That's what I want to do, is drive. One way that I would really like to handle that, and that is to stay with my dad as a team and maybe switch roles, but I certainly don't want to push him out of the driver's seat. And the way I see it, he's probably going to drive until he's 80 years old, and that makes me about 60-something, so we'll see what happens.
Kim has nurtured her desire to drive in recent years by attending the Frank Hawley Drag Racing School in 1988. And this past season, after the North Star Nationals in Brainerd, Kim took a Top Fuel test drive in Lori John's dragster.
I could sure do it. I could do this for a living. This is great. I like it.
Kim's driving urge may soon be pacified in another arena as she and her brother Jeff complete their Super Comp dragster. They plan to share the driving experience at divisional meets and bracket races, but Kim's goals are definitely in the Top Fuel range.
I think we've come a long way over the years, and yeah, I'm real happy with what's been accomplished in my life and in his life. And I'm real happy with the position of working with him. I mean, I like to work with him. And it's not that I don't want to work with him anymore, because I certainly do. But I do have things that I want to pursue also. And that would be driving. That's the ultimate goal.
Who knows? Kim and her brother Jeff may be taking part in a Firestone ET Bracket Championship next year. And the brackets are a great place to start. But I found a way to get racing experience even before earning a driver's license. If you're into drag racing, you've probably wondered once or twice, would I have what it takes to race one of these cars? Well, we found a place where you can, sort of.
The feeling of actual drag racing without strapping yourself into a car, putting a helmet on, everything's the same, the way the tree runs, the anxieties that you get up at the lights, the anxieties that a Darrell Alderman or a Shirley Muldowney or a Don Perdomo get at the light, that's exactly the same feelings that one gets when they stand up here in the boxes in front of this tree.
The place is Drag World in Colton, California, and it's the only track west of the Mississippi built especially for radio-controlled drag racing.
The track itself is pretty much patterned after some of the old Southern California tracks like Fontana. We took it, the specs on the track, it's 20 feet wide, 10-foot lanes on it. If you can see the track, it's 132 foot, which is an actual 10th scale of a quarter mile. We've got 165 foot of runoff area for the guys to get their cars stopped. Some of these guys get going really fast. We added the asphalt, had the lights built up. We built a tower.
Racing is organized under the International Electric Drag Racing Association and the Miniature Hot Rod Association, but it's modeled on the NHRA programs.
Attention in the pits, drivers, attention in the pits. Right now, let's get all the concourse entries out to the tower side lane, please.
We do the judging before the races for best appearing cars, best engineered, what have you. And the classes, they're all patterned after the NHRA type classes with the weight brakes and the, I shouldn't say motor brakes, since they are electric, I'll say voltage brakes and motor brakes and stuff like that. But they're pretty much patterned after those specs.
These are the Pro Stock, they sell maximum for wildest, most diabolical modified motors there are. Drivers, watch light. I told you they were diabolical. When they work, they work. When they don't work, that's what happens.
Even though it's a scaled-down version, emotions run just as high.
Man, I've seen people go from complete ecstasy where they're jumping 6 feet up in the sky after they win an event to a complete emotional low where there's actually tears after a real heartbreaking run.
John Wagner's out first. He destroyed the car. They both destroyed the car, so it happens in drag racing.
Speeds can reach 75 miles per hour for the top fuel unlimited class with an elapsed time of 1.8 seconds.
When you realize how small the car actually is and how small the track actually is, it's very impressive.
But through this competition grows friendship and camaraderie.
It's a hobby. There's no monies or contingencies involved at all, just a trophy and a bragging rights every time they come out and win or runner-up. So it's definitely a hobby, and it's anybody can get into it. Women, kids, young girls, older people, anybody that wishes to participate. The sport's open, and we're always happy to welcome anybody that's getting ready to get into this type of racing. We welcome them with open arms all the time.
That 10-scale racing looks like fun, but for full-size excitement, the best move is to join NHRA. Every new membership includes a variety of NHRA items, a subscription to National Dragster, and for those who call the number on the screen, there's a bonus, a copy of the Diamond P video Drag Racing 89. So let's hear from you. Welcome back to NHRA Today. Some of the cars here at the Division II ET Bracket Championships have interesting histories.
It's a 1937 Dodge Business Coupe. I've owned the car 32 years, first car I ever owned. It's got a 78 Chrysler 360 in it, and it's a street car. It's not a real race car.
This here is a 64 Belvedere. It was owned by Pee Wee Wallace, and I'm the 68th owner to date. And I do own a Ram Charger, a 64 Ram Charger Max Wedge car. And I've got a 65 Pontiac race pack unit that I used to run A-stock.
Quite a collection. But if your tastes are for Fords, Dave McClellan has discovered a treasure trove of racing classics in the American heartland.
This is what you'd expect to find in Ames, Oklahoma. But thanks to Brent and Terry Hike, there's a little bit of drag racing history being kept alive here, too.
There was no racing really around here, and we were so hungry for racing that's kind of what fueled our involvement.
The Hikes have been collecting and restoring these cars since 1980. Their stable now includes 18 cars, some of the most popular ones ever to grace a drag strip.
There was a lot of real fond memories. I won a lot of races with those cars, and it was really nice to see somebody come and put them back together like they were originally, and they did a nice job on it.
But finding and restoring these cars can be a long and grueling process.
You start by documenting the car, trying to get the history, trace it down, talk to previous owners, and you'll get some wild stories.
They were looking for it for a long time, and then they found the car, and they weren't sure that it was it. But then under the paint, they found the original words and stuff that were on it. Then they knew who it was, and then they called me up. Yeah, they sure did, and I gave them a few pictures I had, and they picked up a few, and there it is.
When they was first looking for the car, they talked to me quite a bit and asked me, trying to get leads where it was at and all. And they finally found it. I didn't. I mean, it happened to be within probably 15 miles of my house, and I didn't even know it.
He has one of our original long-nosed Mustang Daddy Warbucks cars, and it does give you a thrill when you see those old cars come out, especially when you knew they were a pile of junk sitting in somebody's barn somewhere, and all of a sudden here they are, nice brand new shiny cars again.
They'd get emotional because it was something they never expected to see again. You know, it was just a part of history that was gone, and most of them, that's from the very first sight, we watch them, and they don't know what to say. They just want to touch it. They just want to get next to it.
This car has really been used and abused over the years. We ran this car 2 seasons. Chuck Aronson, a boy from Kansas or Missouri, ran it 3 or 4 years, and they've done just a fantastic job restoring it and getting the car back like it was originally.
We're using, for the most part, the exact same components they were using then, and
dinosaur methods, what we call them.
It's just simple tuning. You know, there's no electronic ignitions. You know, it's all just seat of the pants like they did it back then.
You know, old times. Yeah, it was just it's like meeting an old friend again. You know, remember a lot of good times with it. That car in the beginning was we found a lot of things about speed in that car.
I'm surprised that people can remember that long. You know, I quit 20 years ago, and you wouldn't think, you know, I'd about forgot it myself. But it makes you feel real good.
You really can't explain the feeling. It's kind of like a friend of mine told me, he said, not very often, you really need to thank those people, because not very often does somebody give you 25 years back of your life.
Most of them looking at the cars the way they're restored now, you know, we ask them, is this how it looked when you had it? And their reply usually was, well, it might have looked this nice the first week I had it. In their own way, you know, they really appreciate what we've done, and none of them have ever had anything negative to say. They just can't believe someone remembered them.
And although the hikes display and match race these cars, they would like to see a more permanent tribute to their heroes.
Our ultimate goal would be to get the Drag Racing Hall of Fame off the ground and see something happen while these guys are still here to enjoy it. They're not going to be here forever, and that's my personal feeling about this deal. That's what I'm in it for, is to see these guys to where they can realize that they've created a mark in this world. The fan response is just great. It gives a lot of the guys a chance to kind of relive their younger days, and you know that really makes us feel good to make people feel young. You know, when you can make a bunch of people happy just by bringing out some old cars, then that makes all the long hours and the lots of miles makes it all worthwhile.
Castrol presents the GTX Pipeline, the latest news from the world of drag racing.
The latest news comes from the Castrol GTX NHRA Now hotline, which will be offering information about technical matters and rules changes for the 1991 season. The data applies to both professional and sportsman categories and will be available until after the first of the year. So if you have a question about next year's rules, your answer may just be a phone call away. It's been quite a day here at the Division II Bracket Championships, and I can guarantee you this was the most diverse collection of cars I have ever seen go down a racetrack. Here are some examples. As promised earlier, here is Bob Fry with the final results.
After 10 hours of racing, the 443 competitors had narrowed down to the finalists in the 4 classes. In the motorcycle race, Ronnie Jernigan held off the charge of Randy Taylor to take the win. In an all-Camaro, all-Atlanta Dragway sportsman final, Alan Clark in the far lane nipped Chris Carlisle by 1,000th of a second. Pro ET was claimed by Walt Semi-Close in his Barracuda over the Chevy pickup of Ronnie McCarty Jr. And Super Pro went to the dragster Bob Harris Jr. when Graham Burge red-lighted. Southern Dragway did capture the Spirit Award, and the new Atlanta Dragway was the overall team champion. Over the past few months, the other NHRA divisions have held their Firestone Bracket Championships, and here are the winning teams.
Our hats are off to all the winners from the 7 NHRA divisions. You certainly deserve your success. For Bob Fry and Dave McClellan, this is Steve Evans saying goodbye until next week, when we'll review the 1990 racing season with Winston Funny Car champion John Force. See you then.